estate planning and why it is important. Again, the reason why I'm talking about this, again, myself and a lot of folks must not be aware about
Yes.
this.
You know, I've, I've been here so many years, right? I tell people with my example. And I had no clue after living for so many years that if I do not do a proper estate planning, I can cause trouble for my family, for my kids. This is typically most people might have heard of those things, but they don't know the details behind it and they don't know the repercussions behind it. It is very critical to understand what an estate plan is.
What is living trust? If you can educate us more about that and why it is important.
So it's a document where you create a trust and then you have this property, so you have to move that property under that trust. So
What is estate planning and why it is important? Again, the reason why I'm talking about this, again, myself and a lot of folks must not be aware about this.
yes, actually, that's a great question that you're asking. You know, I've, I've been here so many years, right? I tell people with my example. And I had no clue after living for so many years that if I do not do a proper estate planning, I can cause trouble for my family, for my kids. There are a lot of things. And let me share with you, I'll share a couple of screenshots in that area because this is typically most people might have heard of those things, but they don't know the details behind it and they don't know the repercussions behind it. It is very critical to understand what an estate planning means. Okay, so let's talk about estate planning. Estate planning, the way it works in America is, uh, I mean, everywhere actually, even in India, if I am gone and someday I will be, it's not, nobody's going to live forever, right? We all, memories might, but not physical body, right? So when I'm gone, what happens to my estate? Who gets it? I mean, and typically, my family will get it and all, but it's not the case. If you do not have a proper estate planning, then somebody else decides on your behalf. And also there is what we call it in America the estate. The state decides your estate. That what happens to it if you do not have a proper will, you do not have we call it a living trust, a will, or things like that. So which comes under the umbrella of estate planning. Okay. Uh, Another thing that most people are not aware of this in America. If you're living here, doesn't matter your status of I'm an H1 or L1 or this doesn't really, a student doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
If you are married and you have kids, small kids, which is under 18, this is what happens in America. If something happens to husband and wife, because we are the legal guardians of our kids, right? Husband and wife are legal guardians of their kids. But if something happens, I know nothing is going to happen, but something happens, the kids actually go to foster care. They do not go to grandparents unless you have a guardianship established for your kids. It is, I mean, and I have seen not too many examples, one or two, three examples in last few years. But it is unfortunate because we have no clue that this even exists. I didn't have this thing for my daughter is over 18 now, so I didn't have this thing. But if I knew it, I would have, right? Because who wants to take a chance? Nobody likes to take a chance on those things, right? And then we talk about sometimes if I have one kid, my this last thing family stay for ugly legal battles probably not going to happen here, right? But if somebody have two, three, four siblings and our kids and all that, who gets what? And we have seen time and again, right? I mean, we have heard of those stories, we have watched movies of those, but it really happens that if we do not have a proper planning done, who gets what, things can go ugly in the family, and nobody likes to have that, right? So these are few things that are required as part of the estate plan.
This is a very useful piece of information, Vishal, which you have shared. I think I myself was not aware about this. So I'm sure this through our episode, people are gonna learn and they're gonna do this planning ASAP, because sometimes, like, you just get busy in your life and you miss on such important things, and later on, like, kids will have to suffer because of the situation. So Vishal, what is living trust? If you can educate us more about that and why it is important.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, again, my personal example, I lived without a living trust for so many years because I remember I purchased my first property in the US in 1998, a long time back. And I didn't know this. And I tell people, do you know that, if you have a bank account, do you have a beneficiary there? Yeah. You have a 401k beneficiary there, you have insurance beneficiary, everything has a beneficiary. But the day you buy a house, there is no beneficiary. You do not say, oh, beneficiary on my house. I don't know why they don't have it. That's the law of the land. Let me share with you this thing. Okay. Another slide I want to share with you that will actually, it talks about the law of the land here in the US. Uh, don't ask me why they made it like that. I don't know that, but that's the law. Okay. So
Mhm.
the law of the land says that if it is any property, real estate property, that would never have a beneficiary here. Now, what does that mean? That means if I don't have a beneficiary, that property, if I don't have a living trust, and I'll talk about living trust in a second, if I don't have a living trust established and funded, that property will, mark my words, it will go to probate, because there will come a day when I will be gone. Me and my wife will be gone. If I own this property, like where I'm talking to you in my house, this will go to probate if I do not have a living trust. So because we all are going to die someday, right? So
Mhm.
that means when something happens like that, probate court is minimum, it takes 6 months to 18 months before the kid or your kids will get the properties. Like if me and my wife are gone today, my daughter, and I only have one, right? So my daughter cannot get this property in her name till she goes to the probate court, and there are a lot of costs involved. And in a second, I'll talk about that and also. And it will take minimum 6 months because they want to see that, hey, who else can claim this property? They will not
Mhm.
decide less than 6 months. So, the kids have to go through that pain and the cost of the probate court before they actually get the house. Now, if you have a living trust established, it will take my daughter, which we have, 30 minutes to get the property in her name. She'll go to the county office. She doesn't have to go to the court. County office, show the living trust documents, and get the property in her name. That's all. That is how easy it becomes. And please don't ask me why they have this law of the land, but that's what they have in America, right? And
Mhm.
since we live here, and we have to follow the law, right? So
Mhm.
so the typical cost, I'll give you an example. And this is like, I'm just taking an example of Texas. If you live in, California, Seattle, or New York, this number will be way high. Typical house in Texas, at $750,000. And that person who has not done a proper estate planning and establish a living trust along with it, the kids will have a cost approximately of 28,000 plus dollars and 6 to 18 months of heartache.
Oh my
That's what
God.
it will cost.
That's a huge cost, I would
Yeah,
say. And there,
yeah.
yeah. So this is again a very useful information, which again, not many folks know about it. So both the plannings is really, really important. And it's like something similar like beneficiary, just on the property. So it means you have to just have this trust created. And then in that ways, whatever property is there, whoever you would like to pass on, it would go to that particular person, right?
Yeah, so it's a document where you create a trust and then you have this property. So you have to move that property under that trust. So that means today it's a revocable trust. I can revoke it also. Okay, it's a different trust than the normal trust that you can create for other purposes. This is just It's called a revocable living trust. So in as long as I live, this is revocable. I can decide I don't want to give it to my kid. I want to give it to charity. I can change my mind, right? But the name of the property, like today it is in Vishal, my wife's name. Instead of that, it becomes, I have named it like Sarin Revocable Living Trust. So the property now is in that name. It is, I still get the homestead exemption, which most people were concerned about. Sometimes I have clients in America, you get a homestead exemption. That means you can get some break on taxes for property. If you own the main property that you live in, and a lot of people have come to me with the question that what about to my homestead exemption that I get? And it depends on the state how much they give. In Texas now we have about $100,000 of homestead exemption. Some they just increased it. It used to be 40,000. So that means I'm not paying tax on the first $100,000 of the property value, and I have not lost it. I have personally first thing I do before I did for my any client, I did for myself because it's so important, right?
Yes.
So it's just getting to understand and know and how to do those things.
Absolutely. And how much time does it take, Vishal, to do the both planning, like just for our audience so that they are more prepared? Like, what are the further steps they could do to enroll into this?
So typically, outside companies will there are different section, different estate planning is different, and living trust is different, and things like that. We do as a combined thing. So generally 2 to 3 sittings it takes, maybe a half an hour to 1 hour each sitting. So that's about it. 3-4 hours you're done with all your planning.
Okay, that is awesome. Very useful information. So it's not gonna take
Yeah.
so much of your hours. It's just gonna take couple of hours and you're all set. Shah, like what is the most underutilized, investment strategy, as per your experience?
You know, good question because it was underutilized by me too. I remember a few years back. There is every company came up with this high deductible plan. I don't know if you remember, when it started in your company, but just a few short years back, a high deductible plan was introduced, and it is actually called HSA. That means you know how the insurance keeps going up, the rates keep going up every year, you're paying more and more in everything, right? And I remember looking at that number, this high deductible plan where you pay less money for your premium, but you save money in an HSA health savings account. So you actually are saving money, which is obviously it's tax, same deduction is available. So let's say I'm saving $500 a month or $200 a month, whatever that number is, right? So if I save that money, it is going to a bank account where I'm not using that money. I'm paying less premium on my health insurance. If I'm younger and do not have health challenges, or even if I'm older but I have no health challenges, this is one of the best options that you can do. And you should not be afraid of doing that because I remember I started investing in HSA. This is about 7, 8 years, 9 years back. Okay. Uh, I didn't know much. I started putting money in HSA. So I'm savings. I did not know at that point of time I could use my money that I have saved up in my HSA and invested in the market. I did not study that enough. This is something that I educate everybody, all my clients. Because HSA, they don't need to come to me, but they need to know. So I'll actually share a slide with you of
Mhm.
what typically an HSA can do for an individual.
That is
Yeah, this is
interesting.
very, very, yeah, because you learn from your mistakes and you educate others, right? So
Correct.
HSA, which is the health savings account, so I think this is one of the most underutilized tool because people are not aware of what they can achieve out of it. So now if you look at today's limit, to 2024 limits, if you are a single person, yes, you can save up to $4,100, 4,150, couple 8,300, right? This is the max that you can do in a year.
Hmm.
And whenever you put money, it's tax deductible. That means you're not just like your 401k. When you put money in there, it's tax deductible, right? So
Hmm.
now the way HSA works is that I'm saving money every year. And let's say I give you my personal example. My wife had some eye surgery. Okay. She had some situation where we had to use for both eyes. So every year we had to spend about four or $5,000. So we did it in two fiscal years, right? Because uh, what we want to do was we didn't want to spend so much money in one go, which we could have, but we did in 2 years so she could get one eye done, and we paid 4,000 that time from our pocket, and another eye done 4,000 from the pocket. But if I'm putting this money aside and I started to invest in a S&P 500 and all that and let it grow, because if I'm healthy, and that's the major expense that we had till now for anything in terms of health. And so
Mhm.
that money that I'm putting in right now, that money, if it starts to go, think about your 401k. If you start to save this kind of money in your 401k, in 10, 20 years from now, how big that money can grow, right? So
Mhm.
same thing you can do for your HSA account. So now if you look at a typical, I'll give you a simple case study about that. Okay. So let's say if I'm 25 and I start to save that, max out the contribution. Now,
Mhm.
yes, will I need someday, some year I might need for something, some health challenge, right? But typically what happens is that you have a deductible of maybe 4,000 or $6,000, and then
Mhm.
the plan pays for the health plan pays for it. And that's why you keep saving that money and you withdraw that money. When you withdraw, you're not paying any tax, you pay your bills. After that, your health insurance pays for it. So let's say in 20 years I used it 2 or 3 times, but that means if I save for next 40 years, I could accumulate close to $2 million. If this is a
Wow.
typical 6, 7% return. I'm not talking about 8, 12% return, just simple return, uh, compounding at about 6, 7%, about $2 million. Now, most people don't know this. As we get older, right, we
Mhm.
need money for health, because
Correct.
that's when the health challenges usually come. So when I withdraw money, let's say I have a million, $2 million sitting in my HSA account. Now, if I have a health challenge, when I take out money, I'm not paying any tax. No, typically if you take out money, you have to pay tax and penalty if you're taking out for non-medical this thing. But if you take out after 65, you will pay tax, but there is no penalty. In typical IRA or 401k, the penalty is till 59 and a half. You have to pay penalty, 60 approximately, right? This one
Mhm.
is extra 5 years. But imagine if you had a million, $2 million in your HSA account, and you could still use it just for whatever expense you have. And this is one thing that most people have never thought of. I've talked to so many of my clients. Oh, yeah, I'm doing some, but you have to max if you can. If you make enough money, because you remember you're not paying any taxes, so you're
Correct.
reducing your tax burden. And when you withdraw it for medical, it is tax free anyways. And if
Mhm.
it is taxable, but you have a deferred growth, you have an extra IRA account in a way.
That's really useful information, Vishal. I did learn about this in one of the webinar. That's the reason I was more inquisitive to ask about this specifically, because what I learned is like not many of us put so much money in HSA account because they think like when medical insurance will come, we'll deal with that. But I mean, this is really one useful way of keeping your money aside to deal with your medical challenges. I go to dental checkup, I just swipe my card and I don't have to pay any money out of my own expense. So I just feel good. I didn't knew that you can also use it for non-medical reasons.
Yeah. Plus, there's one more thing that I didn't have on the slide, is that if somebody wants to have a long-term care, that means long-term care as a premium. Like today, me and my wife, we have a long-term care because, yeah, I know my daughter is going to take care of us and all that. Hopefully, right?
Yeah.
But I don't want her to spend money. See,
Correct.
taking care is one thing, but spending money is another thing, right?
One thing, yes.
So what we did was we bought ourselves a long-term care policy, which pays anyway minimum 6,000 a month to 10,000 a month for 8 years of long-term care. But the premium that I'm paying is deductible from HSA.
Nice.
So it's not coming out of my pocket, it's going from my HSA account, which has the growth and it's paying off the premiums also.
Okay, so you're utilizing your HSA account to pay for your premium and for which you're going to avail the benefit in a longer
Benefit,
run.
yeah.
That's interesting. So that's the reason there are a lot of things, folks, which you have to learn. And if you start doing it as early as possible, then you're golden.
Yes, very true.
And one more thing, Vishal, which I learned from my last webinar on HSA, I just wanted to check that also with you. Like, you can also use this HSA anywhere else globally if you're using for medical reason. Is that true?
Yeah, so medical, yeah, you can use it, but you don't even have to sometimes see, like when you're young. Today you're young and you can afford to pay your health expenses. Let's say. See, this is a hack. We call it a hack that I spend, let's say, $1,000 this year, $2,000 on medical, small bills, whether it was outside or here, doesn't really matter, right? And
Hmm.
maybe I don't use my HSA account. Let the $1,000 grow. And I keep those bills and claim after 10 years. So I got the
Okay.
growth. I got my $1,000 back, or 20 years of retirement time. I can take the money in lump sum later on.
Okay.
Typically you can actually, so health expenses are health expenses. They can verify it. It could be outside. Doesn't really matter, right?
Hmm.
It doesn't say that you have to be in US to have health expenses. Just like I don't if something happens to me, if I'm visiting India, if I die, they still have to pay me life insurance to my wife. It's okay, right?
Yeah, the reason why I asked because it happens, right? Like, when you have good money saved in your HS and you have to go back and, spend some money on your parents' medical treatment. So it's good way to you could utilize that lump sum money because
Yeah, but
it's
remember, HSA is only for you. You cannot use that for other
for
people. It's you
okay.
and yeah,
That
yeah. So yeah, that's
okay. I was a little bit confused that if it's used for medical reasons, so it is okay. So it has to be only it can only cover
yeah, you're the
like if it
beneficiary. Yes. So if
okay,
it is you
okay.
and your husband doing HSA as a family plan, so only your kid cannot do it. Like my daughter cannot use my HSA. Till
Okay.
she was 26, we could use on her. But after that, she's off the plan.
Okay, that's a
Yeah,
useful information. Yeah. Thank
yeah,
you for clarifying that, Vishal.
yeah.
Okay, I think this was awesome, Vishal. I would definitely want, like, how would, if anybody would want to reach out to you, like, for any kind of financial advice, if you could share your contact detail, Vishal, that will be really nice.
Sure, definitely. So we just do few things. Uh, so we just do like living trust and estate planning. We do the 401k protection plan. We also do a lot of kids financial planning. If somebody has small kids, you start them early, and you can actually benefit a lot. They can do actually 5 to 10 times more better than you financially if you plan it early enough for them. Okay.
Hmm.
Guaranteed lifetime income, what I just showed you earlier. There's something called a living benefit that we do. And I have actually a team of other chartered accountant and CPA. As I said, we are in about 10 states now. So I have other CAs and CPAs working with me. Sarin Financial Services. So if anybody wants to get in touch with us, they can go to our website, or they can WhatsApp me or text me. Personally, just mention. We'll throw in an offer. I didn't tell you this, but I can throw in an offer if they give today's reference that they saw this show and they came through your reference, Amrita, then we will give them $100 off on their living trust and estate planning package.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Vishal. So watch out, audience. You can benefit out of this podcast. This is awesome. This was really very insightful episode, I would say, Vishal. Thank you so much for your time. It was wonderful, having you in our show today. And we learned so much about retirement planning. I myself I'm always curious. And I think I've asked you so many questions and I think I've learned a lot. And I'm sure folks are gonna enjoy and learn, from this episode. So thank you so much, Vishal, for your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you for having me. It was great talking to you. It was a pleasure. Yeah. Thank you very much.